and welcome to Better Than Yesterday. So you've likely clicked on this video because you are a fellow student who is struggling to manage their time. And don't worry, this is a safe space. No one is judging you here. And this is something that I think all students at some point in their degree, usually very early on in their studies, realize that managing your time is something that is quite difficult to do. And it's probably turned up to a level that we've never had to do it before when you become a student. And I remember when I first started studying, my first year, I'm currently studying a 3-year course at a university here in Cape Town. And in the first year, things were not so bad. I was able to, do university, but I was able to do lots of other things at the same time. And it's almost like university, I was doing it online. And I'm sure anyone who is an online student can relate that when you're doing things online, you definitely do have more time for other things because there's no commute time, there's no driving to and from university. But anyway, the further along the degree I went, I definitely ran into some issues with time management. And to give you guys a little bit of an idea of just who I am, like I said, I'm studying that 3-year course at the moment. I'm also someone who is very involved at the church that I go to, so I'm serving like multiple days a week at the church that I go to. I'm obviously running this YouTube channel, Better Than Yesterday, with my wonderful friend Daniel Hammond. And I'm also currently in a relationship, which, is an amazing thing, but also takes up time. And I try to go to the gym 5 times a week. I've obviously got friends and family and a social life, and this is just describing a little bit of what goes on in my life. And I also have a part-time job where I am a waiter at a restaurant. So these are all the things that I have to try and sort of manage my time around. And I don't think that I'm perfect in the way that I do it, but there's definitely some things that I've learned over the last few years, which I just wanted to talk about in this video to hopefully give some tips to you guys who I'm sure have just as hectic a life. Maybe you're not involved in the same things that I am, but I'm sure that, as students, we don't usually just have our studies going on. We've got a whole lot of other things, and you have to try and prioritize and switch between the different things and focuses. So the first thing that I had, the first and probably the most important, biggest lesson that I've learned over these last few years, which literally changed my life when I started to implement it, it is this whole issue of getting over procrastination. I think as a student, procrastination is probably one of your biggest enemies. And the simple method that I've found in terms of overcoming procrastination, and it worked for me, and I hope it can work for you too, is that when you start to think of something, just drop what you're doing and do it right there and then. Stop thinking about doing things and just start doing them right there and then. So oftentimes, you'll wake up in the morning and you'll think about that project that you have to do for university, and you'll be like, oh, it's so much, I need to go and research, and then I need to find 10 academic sources, and then, but instead of thinking about it and thinking, oh, how hectic it's going to be, literally go and grab that cup of coffee and sit down at your computer and do it right there and then. So it's literally this thing of, as soon as the thought comes into your mind, drop what you're doing, or you're probably not doing anything, and start doing it right there and then. And also that'll help with the fact that sometimes a thought will come into your mind like, oh, I need to do that little bit of homework that I had, and then you don't do it right there and then. You're like, okay, I'm gonna remember to do it later, but you won't remember to do it later. So do it right there and then. If you had to send a message to someone about finding out what the homework is, drop what you're doing and do it right there and then. So this was for me the biggest help in terms of managing my time, is the fact that I stopped thinking, okay, I'm gonna do, a thought would come into my head about what I needed to do, and I would eventually get to it later, and sometimes I wouldn't get to it at all. But instead I started to, as soon as the thought came into my mind, start working on it right there and then. And this helped me in that my projects, I began them a lot earlier, because we would get the project and I'd be like, okay, cool, I'm going to, initially I would be like, okay, cool, I'm going to look at that project soon enough, and then, okay, then I'll, create the Word documents, and then I'll eventually start to work on it. But instead, now what I do is, as soon as I get the project, I open it up, have a look, create the Word documents, maybe do the first question, in that time period, you're not really doing anything, so you might as well drop what you're doing right then and there, and while it's fresh on your mind, do it. So that's kind of the first principle, not to hop on it too much, but I just think that this was so important, is that you need to stop thinking about stuff and just start doing. You don't need to think about something for 3 hours before you actually do it. And just a little note on that with procrastination is just the fact that the only time you have is now to do that work. And that's why, again, I recommend that you don't wait too long to do what you need to do, because the only time you have is now. Tomorrow is not promised. You might think tomorrow is the perfect day because I have an off day and I'm just going to do it on that day, but something might come up tomorrow. You should have used the time that you had today. So the only time you have is now. Tomorrow is not promised, so get going. So the second point that I have is planning your week out and having a schedule or a timetable. So this is something, again, that I implemented last year when things started to really get hectic. Like I said, I'm involved in so many different things, not just university. Obviously, there is a lot of university classes that I would have every week, but I had youth on a Friday night. I had, another social gathering that I was going to every Wednesday night, and then I had working on a Tuesday night, and there was so many things in my life going on. And I also needed to dedicate time for working on projects and posting YouTube videos. So there was all of these things, and if I didn't have a schedule, it would really be hard to fit all of these things in. You could use that principle that I just mentioned, where as soon as the thought comes into your mind, do it, and that could work. But if you don't have a schedule and a routine of how you do things, you will eventually just burn out, and you won't feel comfortable with the way that you're doing things. So I'm going to throw up a screenshot right now of a weekly schedule that I used. I've used it throughout last year and this year. And usually what I would do is just literally fill in what I'm doing for every single hour of the day. Like when I first wake up, obviously, I won't write breakfast and brush teeth. But, let's say I have a class from 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock in the morning. So I will say, okay, cool, there's that class at 10 to 12. And then from 12 to 2, what I'm going to do is do some project work for that same subject, let's say. Or if not that, then maybe it's doing a bit of reading, or maybe going to the gym. But all of these kind of activities I would literally map out, all of these productive activities. And on a Tuesday night, let's say I was working a shift at the restaurant, that was like a standard thing that I was doing, then I would put that into my schedule. So what I definitely recommend is that you screenshot that schedule that I've just put up onto the screen, and try this out for yourself. I found it was very valuable. It just gave me something to follow every week, and I'm sure you already do have a timetable for your university classes, but you might not have a timetable that includes all of your other activities that you like to get done in a day. So definitely try that out. Another tip is setting reminders. So again, this just comes with this procrastination thing, is that often as a student, maybe you can't really do that thing that you have to do right now. Let's say you can't just drop what you're doing. You're in a lecture right now, and you can't get to that thing right now. So what you can do is set reminders on your phone. Apple and Android phones all have this built-in as a built-in function. It's just setting a reminder of what you need to do, and this will just. What I know is that you can set it as a repeating thing. So let's say you need a reminder like every Wednesday morning to, get to class on time or something like that. You can set a recurring reminder, or it could just be a one-off thing. If you know that there's this very important thing that you need to work on, but you don't want to forget about it, definitely set reminders. This is something that I've been practicing. And this is another tip that a friend of mine does, and it seems to work very, very well for him, is just what he does, similar to what I told you about the weekly schedule. When anything new comes up on his actual schedule, like let's say a meeting with a friend, or a meeting for university, or a project deadline, he adds it to his Google Calendar. And what that does is that it reminds you on the day, or even sometimes days before. You can actually tweak it to remind you like a certain amount of time before. And this just really plans out his life well. And he literally also has like a schedule where like at 12 o'clock he's already put it on his calendar that I said I'm going to meet up with my friend at 12 o'clock. And this way, he's quite a reliable guy. He's not going to forget about these things because he's got his whole schedule planned out, and this just allows him to manage his time so much better. So definitely, if you're not setting reminders, maybe try adding things to Google Calendar. So I want to run through these last few tips that are just going to help you to really manage your time in a way that allows you to get everything done. Sometimes you might think initially, and I've touched on this in another video called capacity is a muscle, but sometimes you think there's no ways I'll have enough time, but you realize that there definitely is enough time to get a lot of these things that we need to get done. But sometimes it's just that initial adaptation phase where you aren't used to doing so many things. But the more you do it, the better you'll get. So another tip is getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And you might think it'd be better to get less sleep because that'll give you more hours of the day to do what you need to do. But there's been studies that I've seen, and I've just seen this practiced out in my own life, is that if you're getting a good amount of sleep, you will be able to be more productive, and it's much more worth your time to spend that few extra hours sleeping, so that when you are awake, your body isn't literally about to shut down. You know what I mean? Oftentimes, when you're getting a few hours of sleep, your brain is foggy. You just don't have the strength and enthusiasm to go about your day. You're sort of just slogging about it. Whereas if you've had that good amount of sleep, there's no excuse for you to be tired and to be, anything but your best. So definitely focus on getting those 7 to 8 hours of sleep. You could say I'm gonna sleep 5 hours a day and then I'm gonna have an extra 3 hours, but I think you'll come to find out that it's not worth your time, and rather just get that sleep in. Even if you've got a test the next day and you think, oh, I'm gonna cram and study for it now, it might be better to actually just get a decent amount of sleep and go into the exam at least not all fogged up in your mind and so on. So another tip for managing your time is to multitask where possible, and this is something that I follow out simply by, let's say I have a task to do, I end up I wash my car and I wash also my parents' car for them. I'm still living at home here with my parents. So what I'll do while I'm doing that is, I like to listen to podcasts. You might like listening to audiobooks, for example, or music, and you never get the time to do that. But you can multitask in that moment. So I'll find a different podcast that I can listen to while I'm washing the car. And in that way, I'm sort of relaxing and almost unwinding a bit and listening to a podcast that I like to listen to. But I'm also being productive and getting what I need to do done by washing the cars. Sometimes even when I'm editing videos for Better Than Yesterday, I'll have something on in the background that allows, something that I wanted to get done, which was watching latest sports podcast or something. And I'll have that on while I'm, maybe editing the video, maybe making the thumbnail. And this is a great way to just obviously recharge a little bit while you're still being productive. You might think, that you can only relax truly if you are doing absolutely nothing else while you're doing those things. But I find this just allows you to relax a bit while you're doing these productive tasks, and it definitely helps to get more things done that you wanted to do. So my final point in terms of managing your time is asking for help. So if you are anything like me, don't like asking for help. And this is just a thing. A lot of guys struggle with it, but definitely I'm sure a lot of girls do. It's just maybe a personality type and I think maybe just the Gen Z thing, in that we become quite isolated. But we don't like to ask for help. And if you feel like you're just completely drowning in the amount of things that you need to do, and you're just feeling overwhelmed, just ask for help. You might have so many things to do for university, and you've got this other thing that you need to be there for. Well, ask someone. Let's say you've got a shift at work. Ask for help. Ask if someone can fill it in for you. You might think, no, I can't let them down. I've got to be there, but I need to get all these things done for university. Don't be afraid to ask for help, because this will, again, just save you time. Because when you try to do everything yourself, you will eventually fall apart. And this is something that Daniel and I have experienced. I talk from experience with all of these things, is that I've just learned over the past few years that managing your time is something you really have to think about quite carefully. And you should prioritize being successful in the long run versus being successful right now. So this is something we speak about all the time. But by trying to do everything yourself right now, you might, things might go your way for a while, but in the long run, you're going to burn out, and then eventually you'll get to a point where you don't have the energy or joy or enthusiasm to do anything. So rather pace yourself and ask for help, delegate where you can, and this will allow you again to just fit way more into your schedule than ever before. So that is it from me in terms of managing time. These are all just things that I've picked up over the last few years, and they've definitely helped me along the way. I'm currently heading into my I'm in my final year of studies, and I'm almost at the end of being a student, for now, let's say. But although I don't plan to be a student anytime soon, it's been a long ride. But yeah, these are definitely just some of the best tips that I've picked up, and I hope that you will implement them from after watching this video. That's the thing with watching videos like this, is that if you just listen and you don't put anything into practice, then you'll never know. But some of these things might work for you, some of them might not work for you. But try applying some of these things, and I'm sure that you will see a difference in your life. You'll be able to fit more into your schedule and manage your time a whole lot better. But yeah, that was it from me. I really appreciate you guys listening to this episode of Better Than Yesterday. Unfortunately, Daniel wasn't with me for today's episode, but we will be back soon, and excited to see where this channel is going. I think it's important. We've done a whole series almost where we talk about what it's like being a student, and I'm still a student for the rest of this year. Daniel's still a student, finishing up this year and going into next year. But let us know what else you'd like us to talk about. As a students, I think we all go through a lot of the same struggles, and that's why I think it's cool to talk about these kind of things, so we can all help each other out. I'm sure that you guys could have some amazing tips that you could give through to me that would probably change my life right now. So please do hit us up in the comments, leave a like on this video, end up subscribing as well if you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more content like this, then please consider subscribing and following the channel, and we'll see you in the next one. Much love.